Vegetable ferments and just major categories of ferments. When it comes to vegetable ferments, how sugars affect it and how the ferment affects sugars, as well as things like how to cap it, so to avoid cross-contamination, as well as crispiness from tannins, and then some major categories and how many strains per category of fermentation. So these are all the vegetable ferment videos I watched. I'm going to summarize some key questions here. I will paste this full thing in the shared doc, but just going to focus on parts of it. So here's sugar. Sugars are eliminated around 30% to close to 100%. So if it's kombucha, something more like that, sugar ferment, usually goes down to over 90 to 100%. If it's something else like you can see here, kimchi, could be 30 to 40%. But here, for instance, veggies, 100 grams, say it's a 50-50 split between sugars and starch carbs. Down to 3 to 7 grams, that's pretty good. That's at least 85-90% reduction. So great way to get sugars down and leave fibers, because fibers are remains, which is great for you and your gut health. So that's sugars. Tannins, they do make it crispier. Black tea or bay leaves, you don't want too much, because then you slow lactic acid bacillus bacteria, and you slow the ferment. You can stall the ferment. And here's kind of the sweet spot, which is, again, half a teaspoon, really good. And here you can see half a teaspoon of black tea makes it crispy because of the tannins and how they inhibit the pectinase that breaks down the pectin, so you get that crunch. Anyways, this is just fruit butters, which are mostly carbs. I found out there's not any fat or protein, but that's on the side. This is so how to prevent air from coming into your ferment. If you're using, and some comments said, screw on the mason jar lid and leave it loose so the lid can kind of move around. Yes, if you put, so that usually will work if it's everything submerged. And here's some key points. Submerge, minimize headspace, and enough salt, it should work. You can actually put a bag around it. So here's your ferment lid on, and then a plastic bag facing down, and that kind of acts as an air barrier or a protector. It's not going to help with diffusion and things like contraction. So if there's hot and cold fluctuations everywhere, even in the house, and when it gets cold, air comes, thermal opposite of expansion, contraction, air comes in, it'll pull some air inside, even if it's very loose. Even if CO2 is coming out, because CO2 has to be continually coming out at a very high rate, and there's still diffusion that occurs. But for practical purposes, if you have it loose, especially with bag out, you're fine. If you want to be super safe, you can actually go for an airlock, which is those things on top with water. But again, this is pretty good. So major categories for gut health: people want diversity, people want potency. Here we're focusing on diversity, and also that the diversity is good. You want a efficient, strong family, and that here kind of explains what the different major categories are. And you have like salinity spectrum, so like 0% being something like kombucha, then you have some salt in like milk, vinegar is pretty much 0. You have medium salt in cultured vegetables, again this is more 0 or minimal, and then soy, miso is very salty. And then you'll see the different bacteria. There's some that overlap, some that don't. So it's good to get a little bit of every category. to maximize diversity if you can tolerate. And most of these, I'll just speak from personal experience, but also from other videos, at small amounts, if you build up, if it's fermented, very high chance that the unfermented product you can't tolerate, ferment, you probably will be able to tolerate it. So going here are the numbers, which I love numbers. So the different types of categories and how many strains each has. Now you're looking here, average probably the good number, but we're going to go look at maximum because this is what I've seen documented in several videos, several studies, and you'll see milk and cheese are definitely the highest. Some people can't tolerate that well. It's okay. If you want to stick with veggie ferments, you still have a lot with water kefir, vegetable brines, and kombucha. Those are really accessible, very easy. On Amazon you can get starters. Miso is a longer ferment, but again, different profile. And then you have a little less with sourdough. Some people can't tolerate the lectins. And we'll touch on that very briefly. Actually, we can do that now. So, for long fermentation over 24 hours of sourdough, you can get pretty low on lectin activity. So active lectins fall below detection limits. And if any of you are watching this, have lectin sensitivity or some gluten sensitivity, if you do not react to long fermented sourdough, can you share that? That would be awesome. Just wondering if anybody actually does not react at all. And then, yeah, yogurt, very minimal because of the commercialized. And vinegar apparently is super narrow since it's so long of a ferment usually. And yeah, backslopping is when you use the previous batch for the next batch. They do this all the time in veggie ferments, yogurts, sourdoughs, kombuchas. And here's kind of a summary of we looked at the misos and then we looked at the sourdoughs just to see. So you'll see it's aspergillus dominated, and then this is the dominant LAB. And then you'll see some of the yeasts, 3 bacillus and some rare forms. Contrast that to sourdough. You see a bunch of LAB. Yes, some yeast, but you can see this guy up above, right? And there's some new ones. You see aspergillus, not the front and center, and then you see penicillium, right? You see cloudspore. So some new ones, and not 3 bacillus, just 1. And then you see some overlap rare yeast. So there seems to be diversity and some overlap, so it's good to get a little bit from every one of these. And then that is everything there, vegetable ferments and major categories.